Getting consistently good bags of pigeons has always been somewhat like black magic in my eyes. That was at least up until last year when I first met Payne, a man who's devoted most of his life to understanding and hunting down this amazingly crafty grey bird. Last year he talked me through some of his secrets, and this year I'm back for more, booking out 2 days of his time to gather as much knowledge as possible, as well as hopefully having a better chance of good conditions. Luckily this time, all things fell into place. Welcome to my first red letter day in a decade.
Today we're going to be testing a Gen 3 ShotKam against a Gen 4 ShotKam side by side. Interesting to see what the actual difference is in footage. Obviously there's battery life difference, data storage difference, and I'm kind of excited to see what the results are. Mostly because at the end of the month, they're both going to be on sale, but the Gen 3 is going to be ridiculously reasonably priced. But a few more details on that later. I've just zeroed it in. I've just set it up to my personal preferences. Let's rock and roll. I know this probably makes a load of sense, but I usually build I then just throw some seats in. You're sitting out exactly how you want to sit, how you want to look, and then pen us in.
The thing is, if you put your net up first, and amongst all this foliage, you've got a bank that goes like that. So I always put the seats in first and accommodate your height around it.
I thought you'd have us in the trench, mate.
What I do with my hide poles, the tops of my hide poles, they've always got this hook on, which is a right pain in the arse getting your nets caught up in. So all I do, pair of pliers, cut them off. There's no way they can blow off at all, and so easy to just take down, just pull it off.
Well, we're all set up. You're saying that they're not going to start feeding hard until when?
No, they're not feeding hard till 2, 3 o'clock.
Is that just standard, or is that something you've observed?
That's something I know by watching them.
Okay.
That's when it's going to be their main flight. Because the way the wind is, so it's coming up at our back, and the birds are coming from our back, they're coming on the wind, so that the birds that are approaching will not hear our shooting. So they'll come up the behind us and turn into the decoys. Whichever side of the hedge, we're on a stopped end of a hedge, whichever side they come up, then they've got an issue.
But we're expecting most things to come in and over our shoulders.
Yeah.
Paul, I put out a thing with a lot of questions on. I've got a lot of questions of my own. Before we start with that list, why have you done what you've done with the pattern? And is there like a best pattern? I know you've said it in the last video that there is no perfect pattern.
But there is no pattern at all. So birds never fed in the pattern, never will. Every time I go out, I'm creating a class of shot that I want. So today the pigeons are coming down either side of the hedge, mostly this side, and they're going to turn into the wind and come back in. So we've got a blob of decoys out there, a blob of decoys out there, big old gap in the middle, and that's exactly where that bird
You're
just
inviting them into that gap?
Oh yeah, I'm sucking them into that gap.
So pigeons won't land in thick decoys?
They will, more so in the winter when they're really flocked up. But this time of year, quite sporadic. You know, I've only got my usual 16 decoys out there. You know, I've got about 10 out there and 6 out there. We've got 3 FF6 flapping on remote control out there, and then we've got the big G going. So we've got a fair bit of movement out there. They'll go past and they'll turn and come right back in. We'll set some birds up on those new cradles. I've got the bouncing cradles later on. There's some more added movement, but it's, say we are still well early yet.
As you can see, that Gen 3 footage is absolutely brilliant. I honestly thought there would be a bigger difference. For me, the variety of modes, massive storage and extended battery life make the Gen 4 preferable. But for the money, I wouldn't begrudge any casual shooter going for the Gen 3 ShotKam.
Next question, and again, the most popular question that's put in is, How can I go pigeon shooting? How can I get pigeon permissions? Is there a secret to it?
That's a hard one to answer. When I first started off, I had a couple of small farms. It really is difficult now, because years ago, pigeon shooting wasn't that popular. You know, people just didn't do it. It wasn't all over the internet. But when I got started, it was a lot easier. Now, every man and his dog shooting pigeons, and so the permissions are taken up. Where I score is, I've been retired the last 10 years. I already had a huge amount of land. And
That's just built up over time.
It is, yeah, and I've been recommended by an awful lot of farmers. I've been recommended by an awful lot of farmers. You know, he's done a good job for me. Makes no mess. Here we go, right in the middle, look. Like that. Another one coming up, Johnny, right low. I'll be shot. Well done.
I guess it's that boring old adage that people are probably sick of. Make friends with a farmer, and if you do get the opportunity, do a really, really good job.
The amount of cartridges, plastic cartridges I see laying in hedges, Coke bottles, you know, just don't leave no mess. Can't emphasise that enough. Don't go cutting all the hedges about. Yeah, people kind of like get thrown off purely for abusing the farmer's land. You know, if he says don't do something, don't do something. It is handy to have a quad bike, so if you're going to go around the edges of the field, you're not doing no damage. But it's always important, you know, you really want to be going where the pigeons want to be, not where it's easier for you to walk to.
Days like this don't just happen by accident. Paul spends a lot of his time when he's not shooting travelling around his ground doing pigeon reconnaissance, finding what he calls situations, or places pigeons are favouring and becoming a nuisance to a farmer. Yesterday, I joined him on one of these trips.
Part of being a pigeon shooter is you need to be a bit of an agronomist as well.
Yeah.
You need to understand what's going on, not just rock up and hope.
You've got to know your crops. There's no point just turning up, driving around a farm and not knowing your crop. You've got to know your crop and what stage it's vulnerable. Because when you shoot a large acreage like I do, you'll be driving around every day looking at the wrong situations. So.
And you are driving around a lot. How much reconnaissance, how many days looking do you put into each day shooting?
Each day shooting, what I like to do, when I've found a situation where the birds are causing damage, I don't like to go the next day. What I like to do is watch them 2 or 3 times. Now that's twofold. What that will do, that will obviously tell me that they're feeding on that crop, but they could have been shot on a neighbouring farm and pushed over there, which means they don't really want to be there. Or it could be somebody walking, a hiker, ramblers, could have pushed them to that area where you've seen them. So if you can come back, once you've found them, if you can come back twice minimum, 3, 4 times, watch the flight coming in, watch the phone, the weather on your phone, see what the wind is going to do. Is it going to turn round? And that will tell you if they really want to be on that crop in that particular part of that field. As you can see here, we've got, I don't know what it is.
It's big.
Yeah.
And it goes on all the way that way.
Yeah.
And past them trees probably another 100 yards.
We've got a 120, 130 acre field here. And I've been watching these for 4 days. So like this bird coming up here, I know exactly what they will do.
So you're coming here, you look for flight lines and then you look for feeding patterns, or do you know the flight lines because you're here so often?
To be quite honest, a lot of my land I do know because I've been doing it for 47 years now. A lot of my land I do know the flight lines, but the pleasure is if you take on a new permission is to sit and watch and try and understand where they're coming from, why they're coming from that direction, at what time of day they'll come for any given crop. Time of day is massive. The time of feeding is totally different in the winter, because the daylight hours are shorter. The crop's got nowhere near the protein in it, as opposed to summer, where from 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, they've got so much more time. So predominantly a few will be feeding, crack of dawn, but not a lot. The main flight normally is in the afternoon, but as we found out before, you get the real high pressure weather come in, totally wrecks it.
So you will be watching the crop, watching the birds, watching the weather, and when those 3 come together perfectly, that's the time to get out.
Yeah, the weather is everything, and it is with any sport, fishing, deers, anything, it's always weather, you know. It's with roost shooting, a lot of people just say, oh, in February we're going roost shooting once a game season's
Like we
done.
said, we're going shooting on tomorrow.
Yeah,
a month
well,
and a
you
half
do.
ago.
Yeah, you do have a tendency to put me in a hot spot. But we was going to be shooting today, but we're not due to the weather. We are going to be shooting tomorrow, but that has given us some good footage on flight lines coming into the field. So we're going to exploit that tomorrow.
It's been fascinating to actually just sit here for an hour and watch, because they do have 2 or 3 routes into that same corner.
They do. The way to identify a flight line is when you've got your chosen fields that you've got birds on, is just literally sit and watch. All this reconnaissance is really time consuming. You know, I put a real lot of effort in, but I don't get it wrong. You know, when I started, people, as I said to you earlier, people say, how'd you get so good at it? Through getting it wrong and learning by it.
The first sort of 10 or 15 years, I presume, were pretty rough.
Oh, yeah, going out and shooting 10 and 15 birds, but the British average is 10 to 15 birds, so I always used to be happy with that. But I used to write diaries, and well, I still do, but used to write diaries, and I'd write down, you know, high pressure, low pressure, wind direction, sun. And then when it didn't work for me, I'd go back to my diaries and I'd look and think, well, how comes that worked this day and not that day? And over the years, you know...
You get in tune with the pigeons. Just so you know, earlier, we were sat in the car. No, we weren't, we were stood here. All the pigeons took off from that corner. A couple hundred, 150, took off, flew over to whatever. He goes, it's going to rain in about 2 minutes. And it rained in about 2 minutes. You get to know the field craft just becomes part of your natural existence.
It does. The late and great, full of respect for him, Archie Coates, he would always say, to be good at the sport, you've got to learn to think like a pigeon, not like a human. And it's the same with any sport, with the fish, with the deer. Yeah, you've got to understand your quarry. If you're just going to go out and, you know, which is fine, half a dozen times a year, you'll get lucky now and again. But if you want to do it on the scale that I do it, I mean, I shoot, I don't know what it is, it's 45 to 70 days a year, maybe a bit more on that, depending on the weather and the cropping. If you take it seriously, you have to put anybody that's a pro at what they do have got to put the legwork in and the hours, as simple as that.
My final question before we have a little drive over and check out another little situation. That's not far away. And I said, are they the same pigeons? You said, no. It's about, we said, probably a mile, straight line. Yeah. And then you said, you can get pigeons on one side of a field and another side of the field that are not the same population. They will not mix en masse. Yeah.
That's true. It's noticeable sometimes on large fields of rape, you know, 200 acres, and you can get 2 populations of pigeons that will come in on a different flight line, but they don't join up, which is kind of like remarkable, because you'd think in the winter months they flock up, but sometimes they don't, and so, you know, I'd rely on Peter Theobald to go one end, pick up one flight line, and I will go the other, and we'll maximise the day. If you just shot that on your own, all you would do, the birds would start to bypass you, and then you would force them to join up, and then you won't be able to do anything with them on that day. So, you know, it is best if you can cover 2. I mean, sometimes you'll have 3 flight lines coming in, but generally you won't get 3 different areas. It will only be 1 or 2. All my record days, and they're quite substantial, some of the days I've shot, just a weird coincidence, have all been with the wind in my face. Better with the wind straight on your back, and that's what people kind of concentrate on, but you know, you've just got to go where the birds want to be.
And that works the same for the sun as the wind?
The sun is a huge one. You could write a book on the sun. If you read all the books and you watch people on YouTube, they're set up and they say, right, I'm okay, I've set up with the sun behind me. And that's exactly what you don't want to be doing. When the sun is behind you and the birds are coming in front, they're looking right into it. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't see when I'm looking into the sun, and nor can they. They can't see your decoys. Lovely shot. The other thing with the sun is you've got to bear in mind it moves around to the right. So if you're out in the middle of a field underneath a big old oak tree full of leaves, you've got to bear that in mind when you set your decoys up. that you don't want the sun coming round and completely covering in the shade your decoys.
And that's because you're saying that the pigeons won't come in to decoys in the shade. They won't land in the shade.
Yeah, a few of them will, but the majority won't. Sun is a major factor. In now. Well done.
I'm still on clay timing. The clay pigeons need way more lead than the real pigeons.
When you stand up and you have pigeons over the decoys, you've missed it first shot, and just say for argument's sake you've given it about a foot lead. The second shot wants to be about 4 foot because that's accelerating away.
Today's quite still. You're looking for more wind generally, but what about when it's really windy? Does that affect how you put your pattern, how you put your hide?
Today we've got about 10-12 mile an hour northwest northeast wind. Keeps moving around a bit. Sit still. No, he's not coming. I say they're not fully committed to feed yet, but they will be later on. So if you shot at that was out of range, you shot at that won't be coming back. The one that went past unscathed, didn't know we were here, good chance that will come back later when that's ready to feed.
That's an interesting concept. So it's also about being humane and killing as many as you can because we're here to do a job, but it's also about not wasting a shot.
Just leave the bird alone, and if that goes past unscathed and that's not frightened, there's a damn good chance that will come back at some point during the day when it's ready to feed, and then you get a chance to kill it.
Do you ever get it wrong? And how quickly in a day do you abandon a plan and go home if it's going wrong?
I think everybody was to be truthful. Sometimes they get it wrong, but I don't very often because I put so much effort into watching them. The only time really when it does go wrong is if the birds, sometimes they just won't play ball. Now, I've said to you previously, if they've been shot, which I won't have knowledge to, on a neighbouring estate or farm, 4 or 5 days before, they can be really tetchy. So you see them on your ground doing damage, you watch the flight lines, you go and set up, put your decoys out, and they just don't want to play ball. And if that's the situation, pack up.
Oh.
They don't like that, do they?
I mean, that switched him off good and proper. Like, I remember last time it took me an hour or so just to calm down, but you are so calm. In my head, when I pop up, they're going to fly away, and they don't.
The excitement gets a lot of people when that pigeon's come up, they want to stand up too quick. But just before that's coming into range, I just get up smoothly. That cannot see me. That's got its whole binocular vision going where that's looking to land. That cannot see me. You can wave at it and it can't see you. But if you jump up, as you've seen in front, lovely shot, well done. Once we've got 20 or 30 down, then we'll go and put them out on those cradles.
And you'll bring the plastics in at that point?
No, not at this point. If we're going to set up a lot of dead birds, and I'll just bring the plastics further towards the hide. But I generally don't take the plastics in.
Clearly working. Right?
Yeah, so if they're working now, why wouldn't they work later on? Just wait, go.
My gun's empty.
What are you like?
Do pigeons have like the power to reason? Are they clever? I mean, they're definitely not stupid. They survive very well.
That's another subject you could write a book on. If you watch a lot of YouTube stuff and read the books, they give the pigeon too much intelligence. I'll give you some examples. So if I'm going to set up out in the middle of a field, no cover at all, I put light net. And when you set out in the middle of a field, I always use light nets anywhere, but you just want it to look scruffy. So if just a few branches, so normally we've got no branches today, but just to make it look scruffy, there's no straight lines in nature. So just scruffy it up with a few branches. And the pigeon can't reason, there's a man sitting in that hive with a 12 bore that's going to shoot me. So many people haven't got the confidence to go out in the middle of the field.
You said pigeons aren't paranoid.
People haven't got confidence to go out in the middle of a field if there isn't some kind of structure, a pole or a tree. But if the fields do need to be a fair size, so on a 10-acre field, it won't work if you go and plonk a hide out. They've got to have space to get in.
Do you ever put crow decoys in with your pattern? I know that's quite a common thing, or certainly when back in the days of reading shooting times, crow decoy stuff is that a thing?
No, it used to be thought, and it gets back to can pigeons reason or not, and it used to be thought that because a crow is such an intelligent bird, if you put a load of crow decoys in amongst your pigeon decoys, the pigeon will think that's safe to come in. Basically, they would think that the pigeon can think that that's really safe there because that crow's a really intelligent bird, which they are. All the corvid family are.
Yeah, that's my mate Crow from down the pub.
Yeah, so
He never misses a trick.
they will generally have one crow decoy, which they put right in amongst their decoys. Worst thing you can do, crows and pigeons don't tolerate each other. Crows, if you watch them in the wild, they just keep bombing pigeons, moving them off. They don't ever hit them or attack them. They don't tolerate pigeons being around, so they'll move them off of a crop, bit of laid barley. If you get a bit of laid barley, you won't get pigeons feeding amongst that same bit. The crows kind of like take over.
What, we on 15, 20? We just went for a little pickup?
What we've just done, we've gone out and we've picked up. You don't want to be going out putting the first couple that you shoot out, get 15, 20 out. And then I've got these new rocking dead bird spikes from Flightline decoys, and the dead birds are set up on them. They're on a brick band. They take seconds to set up, and faced in the wind or just off the wind, the dead bird is just raised or lowered as you see fit to the crop. There's nothing on the market that makes a dead bird set up and move, and these do. I can't wait to try them on the rake. They're going to be deadly. So I think they're about a tenner I paid for them, around that, just under. In that big killing zone, that huge gap that we've left, we've just put half a dozen dead birds in there just as a bit of a added incentive. And what will happen, which is already happening, but that they'll come with the wind up their backside and they'll turn head into wind and come straight in that hole.
Mostly so we can get some kills on the Gen 4 as opposed to just my spectacular misses. Do you want to swap guns?
Yeah, have a go.
Over we go. So by this point you have seen the ShotKam footage from the Gen 4 and the Gen 3, but I have not. I mean, I've seen them all. I'm really excited to see what that difference is. Obviously there's technical differences. This has a much longer battery life and a much longer memory. Either way, both are going to be on sale from the 24th of August to the 4th of September, which is called the Labour Day sale, but it's more of like a Labour week and a half sale. There's £150 off of the Gen 4, making it £499, and £100 off the Gen 3, making it £379. At £379, it's a hell of a solid investment, right? I need the battery life, I need the data storage. But for more casual shooters, that £379, the Gen 3 is totally adequate. It tells you where you're shooting, the footage and the learning experience is much the same. Yeah, you don't have quite the same choices as you do with the Gen 4 in terms of zooms and 4K, but for a casual day's pigeon shooting where you want to save some memories, for a bit of clay shooting where you're struggling with consistency or just want to see where you're missing, that Gen 3 at £379 is, it's a bloody bargain. Either way, there's a link in the description to the website where you can buy them. It's free FedEx shipping, free 30-day trials. If you don't like it, you just send it back, and free 2-year warranty, and their warranty department is pretty good. Speaking as someone who's broken one by dropping it. Yeah, go check them out. We appreciate their support and we appreciate you supporting them. We've just been out for another go round. You're saying birds upside down are bad. I know last time you said they're not the end of the world, but our preference always turn them the right way up.
They're not bad if you've got a standing crop, so the birds fall in it. So the only way a pigeon can see it is from above, if that's directly above it. But if you've got a short crop, like these peas are quite short, especially drilling, you get 2 or 3 upside down and, you know, they're pink underside, their belly showing, they won't come nowhere near it. As I said before, letting the birds talk to you, and if the birds are still coming in, don't get out your hide. But if they're, which we've had a few just shy off, then you need to do something about it, which we just did, and there was 3 right upside down. So, but if they'd have carried on coming in, I wouldn't have got out my hide. Less time out in the field is better. Oh, what a shot.
Get him?
Yeah.
I tell you what, pigeons are really hard to range find. Like a pheasant I'm pretty good with. You have a lot of markers around you, other guns, trees, you're in the same position. Here on open ground, it's very hard to give an accurate range. When we went and picked them up, it's easy enough to just think it was 25, but it's 35, 35 looks like 45 and all in between.
Yeah. It depends if you've got a good skyline or not, and that's where people struggle with ranges. You know, if you're shooting against looking towards a hedge, you can gauge it, but if you've got it up in a clear blue sky, it's really difficult to get an exact range on it. But when you've been doing it long enough, you should be able to have a good calculated guess at that anyway. If it's too far, leave it alone.
I was always told, potentially, that like that bird there, when there's 7 birds in the sky and 1 comes to your decoys, you should just let them go.
If you've got 7 coming, then yeah, shoot. But just shoot that one. But if you've got bunches of, 50 or 100 come, then just stand up, wave your hat, let them go. Only in the morning, just push them off. And then later on in the afternoon, then let them have it. But yeah, just not first thing in the morning, because they'll come back more singularly in the afternoon.
So that is true. That's
true. Yeah,
old wives' tale. That's actual truth.
Yeah, no, that's 100%.
So you've just been out and you put half a dozen over there and half a dozen over there, because we got them coming into the edges but not wanting to commit. Is that pretty normal?
I mean, we're still early yet, but we're having a few that just keep skirting, so I've put them out a fair way. Just a little blob on the left, little blob on the right, just see if we can turn them back in. It may work, it may not, but you've got to try it.
What was funny is you were 25 yards over there and a pigeon just flops in front of the decoys.
Did you get it?
No.
Oh.
Well, I was screaming your name trying to find out where you were, so I was safe. I didn't notice you over there. And then suddenly it goes, he's over there. I'm like, all right, I'll shoot it, but it was all a bit too late by then. So I've gotten into a bit of a missing spell. I took a little break, I missed a few, I had a go with Paul's new gun. And now I have missed with my gun. And so, I'm stealing his gun for a bit.
Go.
Where?
Up.
Take your gun back. You're going to cost me a fortune. It's bizarre, isn't it? They do get to those lines and they stop.
If the wires were here, they come straight down there and you kill them no problem at all. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes they just don't want to cross wires. Pylon wires, different matter. They fly along them, but they don't want to go over them.
And it is just as you said, getting towards 3 o'clock and everything is starting to move. Unfortunately, the stockies have started coming out and playing again. I've had a wonderful day. I had a wonderful day yesterday, to be fair. It's rare in the world that anybody gives up knowledge for free unless they don't really know much. Yeah. As I said, last night when we were chatting in the pub, most experts out there, very few of them are on the internet. Most of them are just quiet people who've been doing something all their life. And it's hard to find those people, and then harder even to extract the information from them.
Me, to be honest with you, that's one thing I do want to do. We're not getting any younger. I've done it for 47 years. It's a pleasure for me to get my knowledge out there. If somebody can pick up the odd bit that they didn't know, then that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, my mentor, an old gentleman called Mick Coulthard, for the brickwork, he taught me how to lay bricks properly and all the feature work and that, but the pigeons, I had nobody, and I just learnt from getting it continuously wrong. But what I did do, I'd keep diaries, sun direction, wind direction, high pressure, low pressure, and I just, over the years, I just learned.
You'd recommend that everyone keeps a diary, certainly at the beginning parts.
Yeah, I would. I couldn't really recommend that. There you go now.
Feeling the pressure a bit.
Yes. I have shot this gun better than I've shot any gun at pigeons in my life. And yet this 100th bird, I've missed 2 in a row. One was a gimme, and the other one was a desperate shot, and I'm ashamed to have taken it. However, the next one might be missed as well.
But you can see the fly.
Coming over the line.
Here we go, number 100.
Ooh. You're dead. No, not dead enough.
Yeah, he is. There you go.
Yep.
Left and right, boy.
101.
Right.
101 pigeons, Paul.
Whee!
I'm going to have a hug from you, Paul. A hug is way more important.
Well done, boy.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everything, mate. That is yours. I'm going to sit down and feel happy. Oh, buddy. What a shot. I tell you what, I genuinely think these are very, very good. They really are solid. I put these in the truck. I didn't even see they were a 32 gram load. I put them in my gun. I shot them. I didn't realise they were a 32 gram load to start with. They're impressive.
I wouldn't have known they weren't my usual 29 gram. You said before, I've got a knackered shoulder, and the recoil on them is superb. I don't hurt at all. They're and they kill.
Through your chokes, what, quarter teagues?
There's teague chokes, quarter and quarter.
That is unbelievable. Stone dead out to 45 yards, switched off.
Yeah.
Didn't pattern quite so well through my gun.
No, but they do through that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Paul is unbelievably knowledgeable. He sees the way the pigeons react to his pattern, and certainly he accepts that some go on their back, but he's noticed the last few just haven't come in the same. So go out, double check. He says that 1 or 2 in the wrong position on their back is just going to not slow it, but just make life hard. We're noticing those birds are committing, buzzing the back edge of the pattern and then just leaving out the right-hand side as opposed to where they were before, which was hooking right in front of us. So hopefully he's going to go out and sort a few bits. To be fair, as the younger person, he should have sent me, but I probably put the dead birds in the wrong place. Would you be parking yourself under a flight line, or is it best to try and drag them off the flight line?
Main criteria is being where the birds want to be, and so that is under their flight line, but you don't want to be right down their flight line. You want to be where the birds want to feed. So the answer is yes, you definitely want to be under their flight line, but where they want to feed. If you're halfway down it, they'll bypass you and just carry on up to where they want to feed. Power of the shot, it's basically the noise of the shot. So if you've got the wind at your back and the birds are coming head on, you really don't want to just be shooting straight down their flight line. I've sat many a time over the years and watching somebody else do that with binoculars, and the power of the shot rattles down their flight line. A lot of those birds are put off. If you can just angle your decoys away so you're not shooting directly down the flight line, it will definitely pay dividends. Where we are sitting today, we've got 2 lines of flight. One is very wide, so it's kind of like coming from over on the left and on the side, and we've got another one coming from behind us. But they're coming on the wind, so the ones that are coming from behind us can't hear the shooting at all. The other ones that are in...
Oh, shot of the day has gone to you. That was beautiful, mate. Absolutely beautiful.
The other flight line that's in front of us, we are shooting down the flight line. What is happening, we've got a real thick leafy hedge there, so that will deaden the noise. So the birds, as you can see, just keep coming up. But if you've got a clear field, you don't want to be shooting directly down the flight line. Just put your decoys to one side and just shoot them as a crossing bird left to right or right to left, always.
What's interesting, other than how well I'm shooting your gun, is you only click them if they collapse onto the floor.
Yeah, I mean...
I know most people will click if it's a solid enough hit that that bird will die.
Yeah, I mean, there is a point to that, because how many are you killing during the day? But that's not positive. I will only click a bird if I see it fall. So if it crashes in trees or if it falls out in the field, then I'll add it to the clicker. But otherwise, I don't bother. So really, I suppose you're adding, when you do that, you're adding another 10-15% to your bag, but they're not retrievable. So I don't really see the point of it. It's just, I mean, years ago, before you had a clicker, you just counted what you physically picked up, not what you thought you'd got.
Mr. Payne, thank you very much. That was an honour once again to learn and to have some fun and watch someone shoot their first pigeon.
Yeah, cracking shot.
Shoot 130 pigeons.
Yeah, so we got that there, yeah.
So it's interesting to know that it just doesn't happen by accident.
No, there's a lot of effort goes into it. It's it's just reconnaissance all the time. Just sitting, being patient. It does take up a hell of a lot of time, but you get the result. So that's why the farmers have me, really. Lovely having you down.
Thank you, mate. And now we have a lot of picking up to do.
We have.
A lot of tidying up to do.
Yeah.
I've been impressed with everything today. Just left us smiling and fascinated at every moment. So let's get to work.
Good. Thank you very much.
See, we could look in the app and see all of the ShotKam footage now, but it's much more fun to wait until you get home and look and do it all together.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to watching that.
Plus, I'm fairly sure. I mean, these guys have a good battery, but we probably rinsed it today. That has been, we've been here 6 hours, 7 hours? 7 hours? Best part of?
We set up about 11, so where are we now? We're 4:30, so 5.5 hours, yeah.
Thank you for letting me play.
That's all right.
After you, let's go and tidy up.
After that amazing day, I was filled with information that would take weeks to digest. But with the opportunity to look through Paul's equipment collection, I found a little room in my brain for more. I was mostly excited to see what he considers the best, like the final approach decoys we had used and what he considered to be the biggest waste of money.
Paul, you probably have the biggest collection of pigeon gear I've ever seen. I would love for you to talk us through what's good and what to avoid. I think, because we all fall into the trap of buying stuff to make us better. We're all gear whores. We'll try to buy our success. What is actually worth buying and what's worth avoiding?
Over the years, I've learned that, say, this colour net, which is, I don't know if you can see.
That's what I would call an old army net.
Yeah, it's so dark.
Yeah.
One of the problems with nets is when you put them up, it's one blob, and it doesn't matter what some of these nets I'll show you are good, but it's one blob. So if you go, 150 yards out in the field, and you look back, no matter what the colour of the background, no matter what the colour of the hedge is, that's going to stand like a blob. If you use light nets, blends in. It just looks like a gap in the hedge. Although it still will be one blob, it makes no difference. The birds are not worried about it. So over the years, these were kind of like the lightest nets that you could buy. They're good, very good. You can see, you can make a damn good hide out of that one net, just a light piece of scrim. But even so, it's still one blob. The only problem is with the scrim on this, it's like nylon. They catch on every bush and thorn, and they pick up everything. But I'm not knocking them because they're good. I used those for years. You can't buy these no more, and these are worth a few quid. These were made by Realtree.
I remember those. They were a few quid when they were new, mate.
Yeah, they're very good. Lightweight, don't rot, nylon. You have got the same again. I cut, as you can see, I cut loads of it off so I could see through it over the years. But the same again, in the sun, it kind of like kills your eyes and you end up looking over the top. If you remember the last hide that we was in together, you're just sitting still and you're just looking through, big gaps in the hides.
Yeah, you can have a little poke here and there, but nothing can see you through it.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues with camo is people, if you say for argument's sake, if you're looking at the army, camouflage is to break the outline. People try to hide the hide when you don't need to do that with pigeons. So with camo, if you look at the army nets when they would hide a tank, it's just a blob of camo here, nothing, big hole, blob of camo there, nothing. So you're breaking the outline of a tank. And you're breaking
to break the recognition markers that you're looking for.
And that's all you're doing with pigeon shooting. People are trying to hide the hide.
Very much the professional, as we've discussed, is you take this very seriously and want to perform at the highest level. If you don't mind the concessions of ouchy eyes, you're also shooting high volumes. Most people are perhaps less obsessed.
Yeah.
Than you.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, when a farmer engages me, they want pigeons shot. They don't want them chased around on that. They want them cleared, and that's what I do.
Yeah, you don't mind. You want your eyes to be working because you want to be shooting more. So it's, this is a professional's kind of opinion, but at that same time, why not buy the stuff that performs to the highest level?
You can get that off the internet, big rolls of it, and cut them to size. A lot of people call it reed net or stubble net. You can buy that quite cheaply, and it will last you for years, but it is bigger and bulkier than the scrim nets like those. But it depends if you're going to walk everywhere. I use a quad bike, so I don't have to carry stuff. I did years ago. So lightweight was an issue. So you'd always use stuff, like what we've got up there. But nowadays I don't walk anywhere. Getting too old. I've carried too many pigeons on my back. So everything now is about comfort and what works, and that is light nets.
You have a heap of spinners.
I have an absolute heap of spinners. Every one that's ever been made I've bought over the years. I say it's 47 years. I know the Whirlies didn't come out all those years ago, but this is just a selection of scrap ones. This is I spoke about it on the last film. This is the very first, it was called the Whirly. This was the very first machine that ever come out in the UK. A lot of people think it was UK Shoot Warehouse. Well, it wasn't. This was the first one, and that design was then copied. This is, I've put a different head on this. This just had two arms coming out of it.
You modify a lot of your gear.
I do. A lot of companies get it. This is only personal. This is just my personal view. I'm not saying they're wrong, but what I've found over 47 years of pigeon shooting, from the very first decoys that were made to what's available now, I will know what works really well and what doesn't work so well. This was always good. I've put a new head on this. On a field of drilling where the field is flat, not so good. Then you'd want something which I've also adapted, a little lightweight with my own stand on it, push it right down flat to the ground. A big bulbous thing sticking up in the air is not so good, especially if the pigeons are jumpy. They won't take no notice of a little machine like this with birds on it close to the ground. But on standing crop, these are deadly. So I kind of got my blacksmith mate to make me. So that's the original that I've had adopted, but this is the ones that I have made now from, say, my blacksmith friend. It's my own stand, rusty, everything rusty, not painted, doesn't stand out at all. If you've got the tops of these always come shiny, they're in NATO green, but all I do, rough them up with sandpaper, get a bit of wet mud spread over it, takes the shine right away. And on standing crops, these are deadly.
Something that we've discussed in the car earlier, and you can see here, is robustness is key, and increasing robustness is key. Something you mentioned is there's a lot of cheaper Chinese machine with lots of plastic parts, and you said to avoid that like the plague because they just don't last.
They are. It depends really what you want. If you just take the stand here, now this is my own design. I can get a club hammer and smash that into the ground. It's got supports here. I can smash it into the ground. when on the summer stubbles, but you know, if you're going to use something like this, it's just going to break. You cannot get that in the ground in the summer months. In the winter, absolutely perfectly, but it depends where you live. If you live in Suffolk where the soils are lighter, that's perfect. But where I live, you have to have something that you can abuse and get in the ground. You know, various forms of stands, which is like, this is another one. Absolutely useless on hard ground, absolutely fine on light ground. So it really depends on the time of the year or where you live. So nothing wrong with these, but they just don't work around the Essex area when the ground is baked like concrete.
It is, horses for courses, as you said. A carp fisherman doesn't just own one rod.
No, I'll use different machines at different times of year or on different crops. So the real little lightweight, close to the ground on drilling when the crop is really short. But when the crop is up, if you're shooting on standing beans, swath rape, green wheat or laid barley, then the real tool machines are fantastic. Where do you start?
Going to meetings? You said you had every decoy that was ever made, and people throw around that kind of comment.
Yeah.
I think you actually do.
The best decoy that's ever been made is not produced now. This is what was called the H&H decoy, invented by a professional pigeon guide in the era of Archie Coates, David Home Gale. This is brilliant, but how they were made was completely hollow. You fold 20 of them up, put them in your pocket, weighed nothing. This is latex rubber. I filled these with foam, put little blocks of wood in, used to put little brick bands in there on a peg to make these things move about. He provided a service when they started to get abused. As you can see, these have been in sacks and they've rubbed, and could send them back, and for a minimal cost, he would hand paint them again. The colours he used, the colours he used didn't shine as we was worried about years ago, ain't worried about it now, were brilliant. He sold the company and the new guy, I don't know the name of the company, I've always been called the H&H inflatable decoy. He just packed it up and nobody bought the company, which I find strange because there has never been a decoy like that. I've shot tens and tens and tens of thousands of pigeons over these, and they would still work today. But I've just abused them. I'm kind of a bit threadbare now.
Yes, they are definitely, well, this one is worse for wear.
Some of them are a lot worse than that in that bag, but I can't bring myself to throw them away. I'm hoping that somebody buys that company and you can send them back and get them repainted. In the film last time we had the decathlon decoys. These are really good. They do shine in the sun. Makes no difference if you're in the right place, right field, right time of day. Makes no difference. And I make these, this is Tyvek roofing felt, and I just staple them together, put them in there. When I'm setting out my decoys, I just throw them on the ground and then just peel them off. So as clean as they can be, that's what I use. These were called the Flycoy. A company went out of business years ago. I've painted these.
Well, I think for very obvious reasons. Or did they actually work?
Not really. And I got chased off. You put 3 of these in your hand like a pack of cards. If a pigeon wasn't coming to the decoy but was just passing, you'd throw them out. They spin round whichever way they land up, supposed not to spook the pigeon. And then you run out with a stack of these. They're all chucked out everywhere, and then you got the task of going, bringing them all back in, and I just got kind of cheesed off of it, so I stopped using them. But
I am not a pigeon expert. In fact, I am the lowest grade pigeon. You know a lot about pigeons, but what I do know about pigeons is they don't really like fast-moving things.
No, these were... I've bought so many gimmicks that I thought, I'll try that.
It's got to be worth a try, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like my... Well, it's kind of what I do full-time now, but it was my hobby. This is a bit threadbare, but I used to cut pigeon wings off and either use just salt to cure the meat or...
Formaldehyde?
Formaldehyde, that was it.
That's good stuff. Good healthy stuff.
Yeah, you can't really get the hold of that no more, but this is a real knackered one. And just put them, years, these are donkey's years old, but years ago I used to always think these are flock-coated shell decoys, put them on, these will work on any decoy. They need changing. If they get wet, they've had it, strip them off. They're only siliconed on, and then put a load more wings on, which doesn't affect the value of the bird if you take it to the game dealer, if you can find a game dealer to take pigeons nowadays, because a lot of them don't. So you just silicone these on, say the formaldehyde or salt, and they work absolutely perfectly. But say over the years I've learned shiny decoys makes no difference.
So flock or no flock doesn't matter?
No.
Shells or full bodies?
I prefer, if I'd got the choice, I prefer full-bodied, but I used shells for years, and that was when I was walking everywhere.
Yeah.
They're stackable rather than a bloody great sack like that.
You're a big, strong man.
Yeah, I used to be, but I'm getting older, so I've got a quad bike now. This is an extendable stand for the FF6 flapper that we used in the last film, which we're going to be using tomorrow. So that it will just go same again, standing crop. You can put that right up on a standing crop. It is adjustable. It's got a pretty good, as you can see, sturdy kicker plate, which a lot of the Japanese import stuff is just recycled steel and is absolutely crap. These are solid. You can also, a good thing with this, if you're in a car rather than a pickup, is take the thing to bits. So it's easily transportable.
If you were to pick 3 bits of kit, you're beginning pigeon shooting, you've got nothing.
Yeah.
What'd you buy?
If you had asked me years ago, I'd have been a different answer. But today, I think for all seasons, I think you need a good set of high poles. Mm-hmm. That's because there's no point trying to erect a hide in a 25, 30 mile an hour wind and you can't keep your hide up. So you've got to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, then you don't shoot well. Mm-hmm. So hide poles of what we have over here, as you can see, I've got 1 or 2 of them. I've bought every hide pole that's out. The best on the market are these. And the main thing that's best about them is the kicker plate. They were invented by a guy called Tony Orchard, I think from Birmingham way, if my memory serves me correct. I've had these 30, 35 years, still using them today.
That's a testament.
That they are adjustable. He used to do them, which I've got in the back of the truck, in 3-tier, so you can collapse them down even further. They are still the best, but you can't get them. You cannot buy these anywhere. Why somebody has never copied this kicker plate and this solid aluminium spike, I don't know.
It would be a lot of money, I guess.
It would, but I think people would pay it. The next best is, sorry to keep mentioning this, but it is good. This is Nick Tate Flightline Decoys. You can hammer these in the ground. I say it depends where you live, but these are extendable. Now they got a fair old height. He will make them longer if you need them longer, but I just like the standard ones. You can push these in. It's got a hook on the side to hook your neck when it's really windy. Solid steel. This just don't break.
Item number 2, decent net, I presume.
Net's 100%
Is that not worth
light.
investing in? A cheap net is adequate.
Yeah, a cheap net, if you want to go out half a dozen times a year, the yellows are better than the greens at any time of year. There are 2 of those, absolutely
that's
fine.
Not so much of an investment, but you invest in your poles, what else are you going to invest in? Actually worth spending money, not just buying the cheapest.
You've got to have a half-decent set of decoys, so I would buy shells.
Sport Blast or Decathlon or just
Decathlon mainly, but any flock-shaped shell will do. The main thing is not so much the decoy you're using, it's your reconnaissance. Be in the right place, right time of day on the right field. Machines wise, pigeons nowadays with the magnets spinning round, they're harassed and shot so much over them. If I had one thing, machine, it would be an FF6
flapper.
The flapper, remote controlled flapper. You can raise them up various heights, and in my mind they're deadly, as you're going to see tomorrow, because we're going to have some of them going. We're going to have the new Big G going, which is a magnet, and you don't want that going around fast like a normal machine. You want it going around really slow, like a bird is just about to settle. But you'll see that all in action tomorrow.
What, last question, is the worst thing you have ever bought?
Pigeon shooting wise?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say it on film.
Of course you can.
These, I bought them. As you can see, they've never been used. They just, I've got other, they're like neuroplane decoys, but these things you can adjust the head and everything, adjust the stand.
And you just don't like them. You don't think they'll work.
Well, the problem is you've got to imagine that a pigeon's in the sky.
And it's going to see.
So when this is set up, you can, I think from memory, this is years ago I had this. You have it like that, you know.
Yeah, you do, pretty much.
But a pigeon is looking from an aerial, and you've got such a thin head, you know, it's not looking side, perfect.
Maybe put it on the floor.
Yeah. This is the first commercially available pigeon flapper. This is called the Dead Cert, and the late John Humphreys sent that to me when I was about 16 years old. Heads inserted on here, body there, break the wings, you clip the wings into here, and then you pull the wings back to the body via a little bit of string back to your hide, and when you saw a pigeon coming, you would let it go like that, and so it would flap.
But you got a piece of string sort of 20 yards to your hide.
Yeah. Anything for the movement. I think even in those days of John Humphreys and Colin Willock and Archie Coates, they still understood the importance of movement. Little slots here that you'd put pegs down so you could put it to any height of the crop. So this is the very first one that was ever made.
This is Gen 2.
Yeah, a very good friend of mine that was kind of like my idol years ago, he gave this to me. Basically, it would bring the wings up and back down. And I've had this probably 30 years. That was Model 2. This got shot by a friend of mine. This was the first remote control flapper in the UK. And it was called Power Wings. And it was absolutely brilliant. There again, no height, all plastic. I've lost an arm off of it, but head used to go on here, which you see I've repaired. But it would sit there, wings broken again, and it would flap. But in those days, because amongst your decoys, you never had no movement. So when you're not really paying attention, and all of a sudden you see some movement, you'd grab your gun and bang. And that's what he did. He saw some movement when I'd pressed this, thought a pigeon was landing, and shot it. And that never worked again. Cradles, these are all the dead bird cradles up here. This is a normal dead bird cradle. As I said in the last film, I bend the heads down so they're not sticking right up like a bird is going to take flight, but they are static. Brilliant. I paint all mine white. These are just little round things that I made just to put a plastic full body decoy on, and so they can go right in the ground or you can lift them up.
A cradle is a cradle for the most part.
Yeah, that's for a plastic decoy. The other one is for dead.
For the others, there's no specific qualities you're looking for. It's not like the others that they don't need to be super robust.
No, commercially, I mean, there's loads of them hang up there. Some brand new ones I've never used. They're all really well made. You can buy them off the internet. You know, they are all pretty good. I wouldn't say there's any better than any other. They're not a lot of money and do present a bird quite well. This is teak chokes, and what this does, if you put the gun back in the slip when it's damp, they're so easy to put on. It just soaks up any moisture, so if you can leave your gun in your car for a few hours, this will make your gun bone dry. Absolute cracking.
You do look after all of your gear meticulously.
I do, yeah. And this is just, and it just goes straight in your slip, and your gun will be bone dry when you get home.
Plus, it matches your chokes. So
matches me chokes, yeah.
I for one will be watching this video for years to come, or until the information sticks in my head permanently. My thanks go to Paul for his hospitality and his generosity in sharing information that many would take to their grave. Thanks also to ShotKam for making this video possible. Go and check them out.
That was an amazing day.
Yeah, it was a good day. That was a good day.
Thank you again for your knowledge, your time, and for putting up with us for another day.
No, it's great to have you down. I really enjoyed it. It's nice to put on a bit of a show. Weather was a bit crap, but
I mean, it went pretty well by my standards.
yeah. It's just bit high pressure today, so the birds didn't come as well as what they can. But yeah, well, we killed 130, so
130 dead on the floor in front of us is...
yeah, it's not too bad.
I mean, it'll do for me, I understand. We have different levels of expectation, but for me that was unbelievable. Thank you.
Well, it just keeps them off the crop, doesn't it? I mean, they're starting to do a bit of damage, so yeah, glad you could come down, mate.
No, until next time.
Until next time.
Thank you for watching, guys. This channel is made possible by our amazing sponsors. You can find out more about them in the description down below. And if you want to support the channel, you can join as a member. You get loads of extra content, well, some extra content, and occasionally we hook up and go clay shooting together as a membership group. If you don't feel like joining today, we really appreciate you watching and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.